Hey YouTube, it's Aiden/BurgerBob here today to talk to you about Yamaha euphoniums. I have both, luckily, of Yamaha's top euphoniums with me here today. The Yamaha 842 Custom, 842S. It doesn't come in lacquer, so I'm not sure why they even say S on it, which is my horn. I've had this since 2007. I've had it for a very long time. It's in some of my earliest videos, I think. And I have my friend's 642-2 Neo, which is the new-ish redesign of the Yamaha 642, which is their previous second-to-top model of euphonium. And I think it was the top model of euphonium for a long time. So I'm going to go over some of the differences in these instruments, some of the similarities. Obviously, they're very similar. And what I think about both of them playing-wise and otherwise. So, first things first, differences. I think you guys can see just a little bit at the bottom of the screen. If you look here, the bottom bow guard, which is like an extra piece of brass they put on the bows of the instrument, on the 642-2, which is actually newer, technically, than my horn in every way, has a much larger ridge. I don't know if you can see it, but the ridge on the 842 is kind of sharp. And if you're playing without a rest like I do, they can get kind of like digs into your leg or your lap or whatever. And it's much more subdued on the 642. Other differences include the lead pipe. And it's kind of hard for you guys to see this. The lead pipe, see it sticks out maybe this far past the bell on the 842. On the 642, it sticks out a good inch farther. The lead pipe is just straight up longer on the 642. The way the main bow here attaches to the bell is with a brace on the 642-2. The 842, it attaches also with a brace technically, but it's like where they're closest instead of just a little bit farther down on the 642. The hand rest for the right hand on the 842 is a little farther forward towards the valves. It's like more parallel with the valves on the 842, and I kind of waffle back and forth if I like this or not. It's kind of a weird design. Some other instruments do it better, I think. And on this instrument, it's kind of more, it's not quite parallel, but it's more parallel to these two tubes instead of the valves. And this side attaches directly, almost directly to the middle of this this tube. And I think in some ways it's a little better because it makes the tube sit more on the crook of your thumb and your hand instead of near the end of your thumb like it does on my horn. And other than that, there's just like a few small differences. This one has like a wire holder for like marching and stuff like that. I think the bell is slightly different. It's got a slightly different taper than the 842 does. I think they're the same size. I think the 842 has a thinner bell, just slightly. Mine has a couple dings, so it's probably right. And just like some of the bracing and stuff is just a little bit different. And I'm not sure how much of that is trying to be different from the 842, or is it just carried from the 642 normal, the old 642. So there's some differences. Obviously, looks, they're slightly different. This is all silver plated, and it does come in lacquer. I don't see those very often, but these do come in lacquer. And this does not come in lacquer. It only comes in silver plate with gold accents. And this is actual gold plate with, and basically every piece that you can take off has gold plate. Also, this one comes with a grime gutter, the thing below the top three valves. And the 642-2 does not, I don't think. At least Kevin's doesn't have one. My friend. Interestingly enough, my grime gutter does fit on his horn, so you could have one little gold-plated bling on your 642-2 Neo if you wanted to. Also, I tested some parts. I think the tuning slides are the same part, or they're at least the same dimensions in every way, because I could swap them back and forth. The fit on my 842 is not quite as good as his. Also, the length of these two instruments is slightly different, I think. Like if you had all the tubes closed all the way, the 842 would be a little bit shorter. And I think that's due to the longer lead pipe on the 642-2 Neo. compared to this because I play on my 842 with the tuning slide pretty far out to be in tune, which is strange because on my trombones I play with the tuning slide all the way in just to be able to get in tune. But on the 642 I'm much farther in to get the same tuning. So, you know, whatever that means. I'm pretty sure it's mainly the lead pipe, maybe a couple other spots where the horn is longer. Also, this one has a spit valve on the first valve slide. I'm not sure how much I like that or I don't. I think it's still kind of awkward to empty, and it would just empty all over your tubing. The 842 does not have that, but I'm also very used to just pulling the slide, dumping it out, which you have to do with this, and this already. So I don't know, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. It is slightly handier, I think. So those are the differences in looks and some of the other things. Ergonomics. So euphonium, I don't think is a very ergonomic instrument. I think it's just kind of a weird half design. I'm still just not sure like what you're supposed to do with euphonium. I have to use, I don't know if you've noticed this, and I think I've pointed it out in previous videos, I use a t-shirt rolled up in half to place on my leg. I actually just saw not a poll, but like a thread on Facebook. A bunch of people said, hey, how do you get euphonium like up to your face to play? And there were a bunch of people that said, oh, I just hold it. Like they actually physically hold up their euphonium all the time when they play. And I guess if you're like super strong and you're not me, that's a viable way to play euphonium. Personally, I think that's really silly and just kind of crazy, so I use a little pad for my 842. But you can see, if I sit up straight, this is me normal, like if I play trombone, this is how I would sit. If I put up my euphonium, I can't play with my chin. I've been working on that, I still can't play with my chin. So I still have to either brace up with my leg, and I still have to slouch just a little bit to get the euphonium up to my face. Without this, I'm literally like hunched like that. And I can play like that, but I'd really rather not. And even with this, which is, you know, not quite tall enough, I still have to slouch, I have to like turn my head. I'm really not sold on the ergonomics of euphonium in general. This is not the 842, even though, you know, some instruments are different. Otherwise, 842 I think is pretty comfortable. I like the placement of the right hand brace. Just the way I play with a nice big C shape all the time. I don't crunch down my hand and do this thing. And it just kind of feels natural to me. Left hand, I've actually had some wrist problems lately. I've been playing this a lot, and I'm not sure how to place my wrist correctly when I play, because sometimes I'll take my hand off and my wrist is just like, you know, stinging with pain. So I'm not sure if that's the 842 or if it's me. The 642, however, fixes some of these issues with both, one, a longer lead pipe, and it's taller on the instrument. It's farther this way on the instrument. So with my thing, the instrument is basically all the way up to my face. If I sit just normally, you can see it's almost to my mouth. So if I brace up with my leg just a little bit, I can actually get to my face, which is pretty nice. I do like that. The handguard, the right hand guard, being just a little further back is a little annoying for me. It's like way back in my fleshy part of my thumb and is kind of uncomfortable. So I don't really like that. The left hand, it's pretty much the same as the 842, honestly. It's just a little bit different feel for your thumb. I don't know. There's not a big enough difference there to really call it. So I think the 642 Neo, at least for me with a tall torso and, you know, long neck, I think this is a little more comfortable horn for longer periods because I don't have to slouch basically at all. And some other instruments are like this from different brands. I think the 842 is one of the shorter makes. It's just very short. So those are the differences in how they feel. Build quality. So I think that's the next thing on my list. Let me check my camera to make sure it's still recording. Good, it's still recording. So build quality. Obviously the 842 is Yamaha custom euphonium. So it's like really, really, really well made. Like the soldering is all basically perfect. There's no weird little acid bleeds or anything. Not that you would get that with silver plate anyway. The fit and finish is not perfect, however. I mean, the silver plate is awesome. I think it's pretty much 100% coverage even after 10 years. I've had this for 10 years. Wow, that's crazy. But my slides have never been perfect, especially my main tuning slide has always been just kind of this really annoying thing to move. I even just took this to Rob Stewart, a big tech here in the Los Angeles area, and I think he took it apart and put it back together to make it a little better, and it's still just not awesome. And it's never been awesome. And for, you know, how much this costs, I think they're like $7,000-ish. It should be pretty much perfect. The other slides are all pretty good. First valve has gotten sticky a few times. Second valve has gotten sticky a few times. The slides, not the valves. Fourth valve has always been pretty good. This one's okay, not that I have to take it out very often. That's not a big deal. As it gets stuck, there we go. But they still move. And the ones in back have always been pretty good. So that's a small gripe, and I think a lot of that might be my fault, just not taking care of my instrument when I was younger. The 642, the fit and finish also seem very good. It just seems like one half step below this in terms of quality. The engraving on the front, for instance, just seems like it was made by a machine and not as high quality of a machine as the custom stamp on front of mine. This is obviously the same, the ones on the valves. And just the silver plate doesn't seem, I mean, obviously this has not been polished in quite a while, and I think mine was recently, but the silver plate just seems just a slightly lesser quality maybe. But his slides all move way better than mine. They all seem much cleaner. And of course, again, that might be due to just better care as this thing has been going. So I'm not really sure who to blame. Like, all his slides move really, really well. Valves, I can't really say because I just got mine worked on, and before I got they got worked on, they were really, really bad. Some of the worst valves on any instrument I've ever used. And I kept using it because it's mine and I have it, but they were such bad valves that I couldn't play some rep, and they actually stuck on a performance recently. So I took them into Rob Stewart, and now they were really good. So I don't really, they were really bad, now they're really good, and Kevin's are pretty good. They're just a little slow. I think they also need to be worked on, get lapped. In the previous condition of my euphonium, these valves are much better. In the current condition, these are not as good. So they're pretty much the same valves. They're both Monel pistons with Monel coating, which people like, they don't like. Whatever, they're valves. There's better stuff out there. So up next, playing. And we're back with how these instruments play. So obviously, they're slightly different in a lot of ways. They're really similar in a lot of ways. How do they play? So we'll go for my euphonium first. I am very used to this euphonium. I have played this for a long time. I'm biased because I've had it for 10 years. And I've played it on and off with varying competence levels that whole time. So if nothing else, maybe I'm not very good at it, but I'm used to it. So it's my euphonium. Yamaha 842S. And Yamaha 642 Neo, 642-2 with Roman numerals Neo. It says that, right? It doesn't say that anymore. Anyway, that's what Yamaha calls it. This is not my euphonium. I have not played it nearly as much as mine, obviously. Here it is. That felt pretty good. So the biggest differences that I can say as a person used to the 842 is that The 642-2 is not as free-blowing. It's, you know, a large bore compensating euphonium, so it's not stuffy in any meaning of the word. But the 842 among euphoniums is a pretty open, free-blowing instrument. Second maybe only to the Hirschbrenner euphoniums, which are just gigantic. I think they're just like they have a bigger bore and a bigger bell and everything else. I'm really not sure if there's anything that feels as open and as like tenor tuba-like as the 842. Not saying that it's not a great modern euphonium, but it's big and it feels that way. And as someone who plays a large mouthpiece, I play a Schilke 53-59, 53 rim, which means like a 3-size rim, 3AL Dennis Wick SM3, with a 53 cup, a 59 cup, which is like a bass trombone size, 1 1/4 G size cup, and a nice large throat and backbore. It really works pretty well with my 842. With this horn is not designed to the same needs, so it just feels like it's maybe a little too much mouthpiece for this instrument. And of course, that's all just my opinion, so take what you will for it. Anyway, my horn is more free-blowing, so that means the low range in particular is really good on the 842. The high range, because it's more free-blowing, is a little more difficult in some ways. This horn gives you a lot of support above tuning B flat. The F is not very good because I'm not very good at double Fs, but it feels like it could be a real note with some serious practice. And on my horn, it's just different. It's not, I don't know if it's easier, if it's worse, if it sounds better, if it sounds worse. It's just different. And I prefer how my horn plays in a lot of ways, just because of that free blowingness. That was not a perfect demonstration, but I really like how the low range on the euphonium feels. It's not quite as open as it would be on like a small F tuba, of course, but it feels more like an actual tenor tuba instead of some tenor instrument that's like trying to play low. Yeah, down D flat, C, B range, this starts to go, whoa, oh my god, are these real notes? But due to that focus, because of the more resistance in just a little bit, some of those notes do feel like they center just a little bit more in the pedal range. And on the 842, you can counter that by using just more air and sounding, just using a larger, warmer air column. You can kind of get away with not using as much on this instrument. Agility-wise, like getting around, obviously I'm not very good at that. I'm not the world's best euphonium player. I don't really have fingers like a lot of euphonium players do. But I think the 842 is very, very good at this just because it has very fast response. It's got a thin bell. It was kind of designed with that in mind. The 642 Neo is not bad at that by any means, but it is a heavier bell. The valves on his instrument, sorry Kevin, they're just a little bit worse than mine. I think they do need a little bit of work. But that's just like the one aspect of euphonium that I really can't talk about because I'm not good at the finger kind of stuff. So the high range on this, it's a little better. Low range on this, it's a little better. How do they sound? I mean, I really can't speak to that because I just don't play euphonium enough. I think they sound pretty darn similar. playing that back to back, they do feel a little bit different and sound a little bit different. I'm not sure what that difference is. This feels like it's maybe a little more direct, but I honestly couldn't tell you. I just play euphonium in the random wind band here or there, maybe an orchestra, so it's just really not my area of expertise. So what do I recommend out of these two euphoniums? What I really recommend is that you go out and you play as many euphoniums as you can if you really want to buy euphonium, and you choose the one that you like. I recently played Besson Prestige, their top model euphonium with all the gold trim and stuff, and it was really, really good. And honestly, if I had the money when I wanted to buy euphonium, I may have bought one of those. Who knows? But for me, I think the winner is my 842. I've had it for a long time. My valves are better now that I've gotten them worked on. It works with my mouthpiece size a little better. And I already own it, so why switch? So there you go. There's a little overview. 642 versus 842. See you guys next time.